Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the International Development Program here at SAIS, I would like to welcome you all to today's event with Dr. Minister Abdirahman Beileh. My name is Chloe Howenstein, and I'm the coordinator of the International Development Roundtable series. The Development Roundtable is a high-profile speaker series where leaders and practitioners within the international development sphere address our students, faculty, and the broader community on trends and challenges that are shaping the field. Dr. Daniel Honig is a professor of international development here at SAIS, and he will be introducing Minister Beileh. Dr. Honig researches the relationship between organizational structure, management practice, and performance in developing country governments and foreign aid organizations. His current book project focuses on optimal levels of autonomy in foreign aid intervention delivery and the role that political authorizing environments play in restricting that autonomy. Dr. Honig also previously advised successive ministers of finance in Liberia. I would now like to invite Dr. Honig to introduce our honored guest.
Thank you, Chloe. And sorry, it's a mouthful. You know, if it wasn't, they wouldn't let me be an academic, right? You know, that's the pitch there. So, Dr. Beileh is the Finance Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia, a sitting member of Parliament, and a development economist. He formerly served as Foreign Minister and as Chief of the Parliamentary Committee on Elections. Before that, he had a long and distinguished career at the African Development Bank, including serving as Director of Special Programs, Director of Operations for Southern Africa, Head of the Department of Agriculture and Agro-Industry, and Coordinator of the African Water Facility, amongst other roles. He holds an MBA and a PhD in Development Studies from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I have it on good authority that his time in Wisconsin made Minister Beileh a fan of the American Midwest, from which I also hail. I don't know if Minister Beileh would agree. But in my brief time in Somalia, I've come to think there are, in addition to the vast differences, a few similarities between the American Midwest and Somalia. A few things they have in common. Not least a certain earnestness of spirit in the face of the ignorance of elites. These elites often take their absence of evidence, because they haven't been paying attention, as evidence of absence, as evidence that in a place very little is happening. Minister Beileh, I know I speak for all of us in saying that we very much look forward to your talk and to understanding better Somalia's context and trajectory. Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Henry. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here to address this distinguished audience, including faculty and staff and students and other members of the audience. From the comprehensive introduction by Professor Dan Honig, you would think I was over 100 years old. From my small town in Arab Seal, in northern Somalia, Somaliland, to a great country of Wisconsin, the dairy state, to Minnesota, the state of 1,000 lakes, and finally back to Mogadishu. It really sounds that I am over 100 years old, but I can assure you that I'm not that old. It is my singular pleasure and honor to addressing a diverse audience on Somalia at one of the most prestigious institutions of higher education in the world, Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins has been educating world leaders in all major fields. Who will ever forget the contributions made by President Woodrow Wilson and Madeleine Albright to global affairs and international policies? Who can ever question the impact and the contribution of Michael Bloomberg that continues to have an impact in the financial systems of the world, and particularly continues to have impact in this great institution. This proud institution has much more to contribute to the world, and I am confident it will continue to do so. I quietly pray to have the honor of this university establishing its first campus in Mogadishu, and I will be happy to be there inaugurating the first campus that they have in Somalia. Somalia has been the subject of much observation and analysis in the past by many writers, both foreign and national. The common themes that usually appear are that Somalia is a country with adequate resources, both in land and in vast shoreline. The latter is the longest coastal line in Africa. Somalia is strategically located in the Horn of Africa, the greater Horn on Africa. It has been the trade gateway to Africa from Asia and the Middle East for centuries. The Somali people have also been referred to as fiercely independent and proud pastoralists. More recently, the Somalis in the diaspora have demonstrated tremendous resilience from their initial refugee status across the globe to thriving entrepreneurs and well-integrated citizens with real impact in their newly settled countries. In fact, most of our partners inform us that the shining light of Somalia is its people, and in particular the diaspora, which sends more than $2 billion a year to the Somali country and save a lot of lives. That is a lifeline for Somalia. The combination of the diaspora skills, knowledge, and wealth with the tenacity and resilience of their local brothers and sisters at home created internationally competitive markets in remittances, telecommunications, and cross-border trade with neighboring countries and indeed across the continent. In this regard, Somali business malls, I repeat, in Minnesota, in Ohio, in Nairobi and Johannesburg are just examples on how resilient and entrepreneurial the Somalis can be and against a formidable odds. Ladies and gentlemen, Somali politics has also come a long way. Where once it was an impediment to progress, today it is leading the changes, and it's leading the way that will unleash Somalia's potential for full democratization. Somalia's parliament is still clan-based, unfortunately, but there is a common agreement, a common understanding that this country will quickly shift to universal suffrage, where policies and not clan will determine the fate of the Somali people. Ladies and gentlemen, Somalia has unfortunately never been able to maximize its enormous potential. The tragedy is that the resources are plenty, but in the past we were caught up in the ideological quagmire which benefited very few elite Somalis. This quagmire gave birth to the civil war that ravaged the country for the last 25 years. And opened the door for lawlessness and chaos, followed more recently by a decade of religious fanaticism. This led to the unfortunate collapse of the fabric of what is otherwise known as a very homogeneous society. Ladies and gentlemen, trade has long been connected. Trade has long been what connected Somalia to the rest of the world. It is one of the many factors that bind a society that's otherwise clan-based. Historically, Somalia traded widely with the world, and at times in history was a transit for goods from the Middle East, from Far East to the rest of the continent. There was even a famous road at one point, from Cairo to the rest of Africa through the Somali Red Sea ports and small towns. Today, there is a tremendous wind of change in Somalia. There are many reasons for this wind of change in Somalia, and there are many reasons. First, Somali people are waking up to the reality that their poverty and underdevelopment are mostly of their own making, and that they can and must put a stop to it. Number two, Somali people were in the recent past blinded by internal strife, but today they see clearly that they have been left behind by everybody and in every measure, that they are at the bottom of all international tables, including education, investment, security, and corruption, being at the top of the most corrupt countries in the world. There are still young people in their prime seeking to escape their country at the cost of their lives, trying to fulfill their potential elsewhere. Number three, the diaspora, with their wealth of education, international experience, less inclination to clan and financial resources, are returning in large numbers to disrupt the negative processes that have been in place for the last 27 years and to help institutionalize stability and rule of law. The critical mass of those determined to make a positive change in the country are finally taking the lead, moving the country forward. If you just look at my team, most of them are from diaspora, trying to help the country get out, extricate itself from the problem that it has been for the last many, many years. You can see more Somalis today asking themselves, debating not on what can I take from the country, but indeed what I can add, what can I contribute to our country. We observe remarkable positive and constructive shift in attitudes among Somalis everywhere today, both locally and in the diaspora. Number four, the Somali business leaders have realized that there cannot be two rules for their trade at home and elsewhere, because Somali traders trade in Somalia and elsewhere at the same time, and they have learned rules whether you are in Somalia or other countries. In an interconnected world of regulations, the business community is quickly working to harmonize trading rules and practices, especially managing money and commodities, which provide the Somali government with the greatest opportunity for partnership with the industry. At present, Somali government has passed the ICT bill and public financial management laws with a full support from the Somali business community inside the country and outside, including the major financial and telecommunication companies. This is because they realize that for them to be globally profitable and to attract investment, they will need the support of their government. So they realize the importance of government to regulate and safeguard the interests of the public and their own. Ladies and gentlemen, this is indeed historic. Just a decade ago, the Somali state was totally irrelevant, both at home and abroad. Today, it is the main assurance that everybody is looking for Somali entrepreneurs, both at home and overseas. Number five, the Somali people have come to the realization that the country has more resources than just the livestock. Livestock, as you all may know, was once considered to be the ultimate asset that anybody should have if he has to call himself well off. But with the advancing technology, better education, and newly found openness to experience to other cultures, the Somali people have woken up to new opportunities. The Somali government is determined to harness its other resources, including its vast ocean and the Red Sea, oceans and seas, and to promote a strong blue economy, which combines fisheries, tourism, and coastal community development, while safeguarding the environment, of course, which is extremely important. We have also started the conversation regarding exploring our oil and gas potential cognizant, of course, of the fact that there is also a great opportunity for green energy, given Somalia's geographical location and readily available sun and wind across the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains, ladies and gentlemen, that Somalia today needs just a gentle push in the right direction for it to take off. And when that happens, it is clear to all of us, including myself, that Somalia will be among the best performing economies in Africa within a short period of time, given the kind of people we have in the country, entrepreneurship skills, and development orientation. One of the main challenges that we must address is the elephant in the room, and that is the security in the country. This is our number one priority. It is where we spend most of our meager resources, and we are confident that with the valuable partners we have, including the US, we will be able to defeat international terrorism, both at home and abroad. There is no real ideological differences or conviction within the Somali society, but poverty and lack of opportunities drive the most vulnerable into the hands of those who would like to exploit them through radicalization. I am convinced that by simply offering them opportunities for our youth, as we intend to do through our economic and fiscal reforms, and by addressing the issue of security, things will fall into place very quickly. On its part, the new Somali government, under the able leadership of His Excellency President Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed Farmajo and his Prime Minister, His Excellency Hassan Ali Khaire, is committed to good governance, public service delivery, poverty reduction, as stipulated in our National Development Plan. We fully understand that only domestic finances will allow for this to materialize. We have to collect taxes, we have to mobilize adequate domestic resources to be able to at least cover our costs. As the Minister of Finance, which is my portfolio, my responsibilities include to cover at minimum the cost of running the government, from our own domestic resources, and leave the international community efforts to cover the development aspect of the country. The cost of running government today includes basic salaries of civil servants, the basic salaries of the armed forces, and operating costs of government ministries and other agencies. I'm glad to say that today, unlike in the past, we are able to currently cover about 50% of all the costs of running government from our own resources, leaving the rest to be contributed by our international partners. Our goal, however, is to totally be self-sufficient, at least in covering this cost in the near future. It's worthy to note at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, that Somalia is in a very unique position of coming out of a total absence of government to a position where the public recognizes its existence for the first time in a long time. That's good news indeed. And people expect more services every day and demand more services. Expect and demand more services every day. Among the most important service expected by public is the creation of more employment for our youth, who make up about 70% of the total population. We understand better than anyone that our youth can either be a great economic advantage to our success, or indeed internal disruptors and makers of havoc to our progress. We do not want to see our young taking up arms or joining in terrorism groups, or droning at the sea while seeking opportunities abroad, simply because we could not provide them with livelihood at home. where they belong and where they can contribute the most to the development of the country. Alongside building a strong, inclusive economy, the Somali government is determined to clear the arrears with the international community. To achieve this, ladies and gentlemen, Somalia has re-established strong relations with the international community, including the two based in this very city, the World Bank and the IMF, and also including the other IFIs, the Islamic Development Bank and the African Development Bank. We are determined to strengthen our capacity to deliver the enormous reforms necessary and required by these institutions. The requirements of the SMP Staff Monitoring Program are good for Somalia. They are good for Somalia. They are good disciplines. And therefore, we are committed to go through with it and do it. This will reinstill discipline in our processes and provide us with the opportunity to learn from our past while forging relationships with the international financial community. Our country systems, which Professor Dan Honing studied most heavily, are not yet strong enough to accommodate all our different partners' requirements. However, we are putting in place commitment controls, implementing anti-money laundering processes, clear procurement processes, and sound financial management at the heart of our fiscal and economic reforms. What gives us hope, ladies and gentlemen, is that both the public and the private sector have finally come to the understanding that the implementation of these requirements is a must for their own good, collective good, their own collective good. There is no special rule for Somalia. We cannot make special rules for Somalia, even though most of the times I argue that Somalia is different from all other countries. Just look around. How many countries have been in without government for 27 years and is still kicking? It will be difficult. It will be difficult for any other country, and it shows the resilience of the Somalis. We are now coming together, and I think in the near future, all will be fine. We either succeed or fall off the cliff once again. This realization, or the realization of this possibility, forces all of us to fall in line and do what is must that we have to do. To conclude, Somalia has come a long way since warlords roamed around in no man's land and controlled every aspect of life in Somalia. Today, Somalia has turned the corner towards stability and prosperity. There is absolutely no going back. Of course, there are still some challenges. We are not out of the woods yet, but with the newly found spirit of progress, determination, and unity in purpose, and the recommitment of the international community to support the country, no challenge, no matter how big it is insurmountable anymore. Thank you very much.
So we'll now have time for some questions. We have microphones out in the audience. If you could please just introduce yourself with your name and your organization, whether that's SICE or an outside affiliation, we'd love to hear from you. Yes, please.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Hassan Kainan. I retired from UNESCO, where I worked for 20 years. Thank you, Mr. Beileh, for a very good presentation. I believe that we need more time for you to be here, because we are really very keen to learn more about what is happening in our country. I want to ask two quick questions. One is that I read from somewhere that you are a poet and you sometimes sing. And in one of your songs, I think the title was Somalia is a Project. Could you elaborate a little bit what you mean by this project, by whom, who are the shareholders, and what is the percentage of the share that Somalis actually have in this project. The other is about corruption. I think you presided over the election of the current government, and it was quite successful given the difficult situations that the country was facing. But according to some experts, including Professor Abdi Ismail, this was one of the most corrupt elections in Somalia. You were presiding this. We want to hear from the horse's mouth. Could you tell us, please, was this the most corrupt election in the history of Somalia? Thank you very much.
So should we do 23 or 2 at a time, 4 at a time?
Thank you. Daniele Moro, US Italy Forum. The question is about the news that I read, I think, this morning, about oil discovered in Somalia. Is it true that Somalia could become a producer of gas and oil?
Nick Ada from Insight Student, kind of piggybacking off of his question. Could you talk more about what Somalia is doing to make the country more investor friendly? You talked a lot about on a coastline, resources. Seems like there's money to be made there, but what are you doing on your part to make people want to come to the country?
Okay, let me with your permission, respond to the first set of questions. The first one is about by Hassan Kainan about some of the lyrics that I put together on the situations of Somalia. I think it's a reflection of how deeply I feel about where Somalia has been and the difficulties that it goes through. So anytime you feel something, a place you are visiting and somebody takes your passport away, or you are given more questions because you look like Somali somewhere, or the issue of corruption, or these stereotypes, then I put a song together. I don't mean to badmouth anybody, but it's just my feeling. Now the song that you referred to, I have the lyrics, but I don't have the music and all that. Somebody else does that. Now, and I don't sing. I don't sing. Now, Somalia is a project. I worked at the African Development Bank for 30 years, and most of my days were working in projects. Now, projects, as you all know, you have a new project, you establish life, and you establish implementing agencies, and you recruit people, and you establish a new organization. If you establish a new organization, it has its own way of surviving forever, living forever. It never ends. That's why project of the World Bank and IMF and ourselves, they will always say project life when you are taking to the board is 5 years. It's never 5 years. It's around 10 years. And somebody has to come and stop it. Stop. So unless somebody comes and stops it, it has this self-perpetuating life that goes on because there are people, that are benefiting from it. So that's why I put that song together. It doesn't mean anybody, so that's all I can say. That's all I can say about that. The corruption issue, that's the second one. Can you say that again? Corruption issues? Yeah. Yes, I remember Abdirahman Beileh. I cannot really say that this is, well, first of all, people can say whatever it is that they think they observed. And I cannot say that there was no corruption. I would only say it was tremendous improvement. I would say simply that it was tremendous improvement. That's why somebody who was not expected became the president. Ever since I remember, I think this was the best election. But it is comparative. this comparative. That one. The security issue, I mean the investment that you have raised. We are trying to be credible nation. We are not now campaigning around and telling people to come and invest. That time will come. But there are so many things that we have to do before we can talk about that. That is transparency, good governance, less corruption, no corruption, I must say. And when people see this, and they then see opportunity for investment, then we can talk. They can come. But we have to clean our house first. And that is really what we are working on now. And hopefully, within, say, a year or so, we will have reached that stage where we go and talk to businesses and entice them to come and visit the country. Of course, there is a need for reconstruction, and there is a lot of money to be made on our fisheries, on our livestock, and other resources that we have. Somebody just asked me the question about, yes, you asked me about the question of oil. Indeed, there is a possibility. I cannot confirm to you the quantity of what it is, but there are a number of studies that say there is plenty of gas and oil in Somalia. We are not worried about that now. We have to clean our house. We have to put our house in order. We have to be credible. We have to be trusted by both our people as a government and the international community. And then everything will fall into place. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ajwa. I'm a science student. You mentioned in your remarks that it was unfortunate that the parliamentary system was still clan-based. I just want to understand a little bit more why you think that's a problem and whether you think that's something that should be changed immediately or if it's something that can be lived with in the medium to long term until Somalis themselves want universal suffrage.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I can answer to that question. Clan-based, I'm saying clan-based because you want people to organize their thoughts on the basis of their individual interest, so that all teachers will have some ideas together because they share interest. All business people will think about their interest when they are voting. All farmers will do the same thing. All teachers will do the same thing. I think that's pretty much what development is all about, and fighting and voting for somebody to see your interest. Clan is not like that. Whether you benefit anything or not, you just vote wherever your clan is voting. Wherever your clan is voting. So that means that you don't vote for anybody because of his or her ideas, and it's ideas that lead the world. What can you contribute? It's not the issue when you are clan-based. You just vote for your clan, and that's it. And that's why I am saying we have to move this. We cannot abolish it because it's in our genes. That's what we are. That's what we are. But in terms of elections, in terms of managing the country, moving the country forward, there has to be some interest groups, and we have to elect people on what they can contribute. There is in Somalia today people, no matter what they can do, they cannot be elected simply because of the clan they are from. And that's very bad in my judgment. We have to look at people and see what they can bring, what they can contribute, what are they saying, and how is that good for the country. That's why I am saying clan-based alone does not get anybody anywhere. Never got anybody anywhere, and Somalia is no exception.
Hi, my name's Mary. I'm also a science student. This is a topic I'm very interested in. So when we talk about trying to move away from the clan system or trying to find alternative identities for people to vote on, does civil society have a role to play? Are they active in Somalia today? Is there any kind of active measures that the government is trying to take to design systems that discourage clan-based voting and try and promote other kinds of ethnic or identity voting? Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. Great question. there is civil society in Somalia, but they are very non-political. They only talk when some general issue is affecting certain segments of society. Let's say there is a big disease somewhere, cholera or something, then they will be talking about that together. And these civil society are normally not many people from many clans. They talk about that. They talk about refugees, general issues. They talk about education in general. You know, kids that are many unemployed in towns, and they will talk about finding education for them, but never major issues about regarding political issues. I think it will take a while before these become very strong and have a big voice on managing the resources in general and moving and saying something about the direction of the country.
My name is Hassan Mohammed, and I am a resident, a Somali resident in the United States. I haven't heard you talk about the issue of remittance. And as you know, there are Somali communities everywhere, especially the North American communities, are facing challenges and difficulties in trying to send money back home. And most of the country is getting by receiving money from the Somali diaspora, whether they are in North America, whether they are in Europe, or whether they are in Middle East. We believe that is really very crucial in sustaining the economics of the country. Now we are seeing that ability to send money back home is really being challenged everywhere, and especially more so in North America. As a Somali, as a member of the Somali gang, how do you see? Can you elaborate on how this can be solved?
Okay.
My name is Kamar Hersey, and the question I have is regarding the progress you made in terms of collecting at least 50% of the government's expenses. How did you reach that, and what have you done? And what needs to be done in order to get 100% of your expenses, of the government's expenses?
Hello, my name is Maya. I'm a SCICE student. So there is a large population of Somalis in Kenya, especially Dadaab refugee camp, and the Kenyan government has made some statements about closing the camp, and there have been some people returning to Somalia but having some difficulty with that. And so can you discuss a little bit the government's position on the pace of refugee returns and how best to support those who are coming back into Somalia?
Okay, so let me try and respond to these three questions. The remittance, I mentioned in my statement that Somalis in the diaspora contribute tremendously to Somalia. Not only do they bring skills and education and know-how and less clannish attitudes, but they also bring a lot of money. I said they bring every year $2.5 billion. And I said that's a lifeline for Somalia. Just before I came here, I had a meeting with the Treasury. We were talking about remittance. We met the IMF this morning. We talked about remittance. Yesterday we had a bank meeting, World Bank. We talked about remittance. Now, there is no way we can come here without addressing the issue of remittance. And first thing I say is that everybody has to know that Somalia, if Somalia is there, still, given what it has been through, in my judgment, there is three key areas, three key factors that kept them alive. One is remittance, the other one is Somali women. Not Somali men, Somali women. If Somalia is still there, these are the two issues. Remittance, people are sending money back, and the Somali women. Just go to Somalia and see what men do and what women do. It's true. It's very true. It's very true. And therefore, there is no way I cannot talk about remittance. Now, we know the challenges of remittances. They have no corresponding banks. And now they have to carry sacks of money from US and Australia and everywhere in planes, millions of dollars to Dubai, and then they buy goods and services and send it to Somalia. That's how they do it. Unsustainable, that is. Very unsustainable. And therefore, we are working very hard with the US government. And you know, I was saying to everyone, anytime I talk to the World Bank and to everybody else, on everything I talk about, they will finally say, have you talked to the Americans? Everybody will say, I was telling the ladies and gentlemen that I met just now at the Treasury, I said, you guys, when I'm talking to you, you sound normal. And everybody is saying, talk to the Americans, but you are talking normal. What is the problem? Why can't we have accounts? And really, on our part, there are a lot of things that people don't understand about the way we do business. The way we do business is trust. Where else in the world can you walk into a small, shabby shop and give $100,000 and say, this is the number, please send it, and you disappear? It never happens. And this is the challenge that we pose on everybody. And nobody can outcompete Somalis, because that's what they do, especially sending money to Somalia. They will just give somebody who doesn't look like responsible in a small shop on a small chair, a small computer, and you give you 10,000 every month and say, please send it to them. And before you leave, the guy calls you from a small town in Somalia, I received it. I mean, nobody can compete with that. So the part of the problem is because they are out-competing everybody, and I can assure you, they are not only now transferring money to Somalia, everywhere. I live in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, before I came here. And there is one Hawala there. They are sending to everybody. All East Africa and everybody that sees will say, okay, send it for me. $2 and you send thousands of dollars. And he immediately get the money. Because he has a guy there who has money. They will just talk to the guy. The person comes, money is given. It doesn't take anything. And you guys have outcompeted, and that's part of the issue, But on our part, I think we need to explain more on what we are doing with the money. Know your customer issue. Know your customer. We have a lot of issues. We have terrorism everywhere. We don't want your money to be feeding somebody who is dangerous to society. And that's what we're working on now. We, in fact, have Amira here with us, who is the head of the new organization in Somalia, which will head the department that does all these things and helps them establish a credible know your customer framework. That is that. It took me a bit longer than. Now, the domestic resources and 50%. I think that our income is increasing. Our tax revenues are increasing. Also, our governance of transparency of what we get, keeping it there and not using it for anything else, is also helping. That's why now we can cover 50% of the cost of running government. And I think we will improve. We will improve. And the target is that one of these days we have to reach a level where we can say we can cover all the domestic, all the expenses from our domestic resources. When that happens, I will come here and make another statement. The refugees is a big issue. Not only do we have refugees in Dadaab and elsewhere, but we also have internal refugees. I mean, if you have been to Mogadishu recently, major prime land in the center of town is full of internally displaced refugees. That's a big issue. It needs a lot of resources. And it's very political, because sometimes most of the people are from one group or the other, and so, you know, it's very difficult. Some of the major buildings of major institutions are now inhabited by internally displaced people. Two issues. One, if you move them, you have a clan issue that will fight. And the second issue is moral issue. How can you move these people? They have been there for, you have to find them a place. You cannot just kick them out. And in a country where money is difficult to come by, resources difficult to come by, we just leave them the way they are. When the time comes, when resources come, when we all come to our senses, I think it will be possible for us to arrange, to make the necessary arrangement. Thank you. Okay.
Any last questions? I think we have time for one or two. Well, thank you so much, Minister Beileh. That was very informative, both the talk and your answers to the questions. Thank you so much for joining us here, and we're very lucky to have you all the way from Somalia. And for everyone in the audience, we hope to see you at future Roundtable events. On November 1st, we will be hosting Madeline Varkey from the Asian Development Bank. On November 15th, we will have Ross Baird. He is the CEO of a venture capital firm. And on December 6th, we will have Masood Ahmed, who is the president of the Center for Global Development. We will send information out to RSVP a little bit closer to the events. And if we don't have your information, please, there should be a sign-up sheet at the back of the room. So please sign up so that we can give you information for future events. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you haven't had a chance to get some food at the back, please do have some. And thank you again, Minister Beileh.